Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So as you know, Wednesday means it's Wildcard Wednesday here in Instant Deck Tech land, and this week we are heading all the way back to Legacy to check out one of the more underrated tribes in Magic. So this is Legacy Soldiers, and this is a semi-real deck. Why this exact build comes from Sasaki Yasuki, who took it to a top 8 finish in a recent Japanese tournament. It pops up every now and then on the GP scene. Anyway, a quick reminder before we break down Legacy Soldiers. If you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So before we get to the cards, I did want to mention, this is another budget option by Legacy standards. As you can see, $700-ish in the paper world, which is still a lot of money, I know, and Legacy standards are super weird when it comes to budget, but it's like a third to a fourth of the cost of a typical Legacy deck, so it's worth keeping in mind. Could be a good entry option into the format, especially since a lot of the cards are stuff you might have from Modern if you have a big Modern collection. So anyway, let's talk the cards, and the big thing about this deck is it wants to spew soldiers onto the battlefield really quickly, so it has a ton of cost reduction effects. Bally Rusher Banneret, 2-drop soldier, makes soldiers cost 1 less mana. Daru Warchief is a 4-drop soldier, but remember, could get the benefit from Bally Rusher Banneret to make it cheaper. Not only does it make our soldiers cost 1 less, but it gives them +1/+2, really weird stats on a Lord. And then Preeminent Captain is sort of the goblin lackey of the soldier tribe. Little bit more expensive. It comes down in the 3 mana slot, but it's a 2/2 with first strike, and whenever it attacks, you can put a soldier into play tapped and attacking, so it doesn't even have to actually connect. So you can attack with this, put a lord in the play to pump it so it survives combat. But these cards are really key. So theme 1 of Legacy Soldiers is reduce the cost on soldiers, so you can play things super cheap, get your hand on the battlefield really quickly. Theme 2 is a couple of lords. We already talked Daru Warchief, which is both a cost reduction effect and a lord. Captain of the Watch is kind of the big finisher. It's a lord, pumps all of our soldiers, gives all of our soldiers vigilance so they can play offense and defense, gives all of our soldiers +1/+1 so it stacks with the Daru Warchief, and it makes 3 soldiers. So in the end, you end up getting a total of 9 power and toughness, assuming that the Captain of the Watch sticks around across 4 bodies for 6 mana. But ideally, we'll be playing this for 3 mana, for 4 mana, thanks to our Banneret, our War Chief, and so forth. Then we have some card advantage generating soldiers. Palace Jailer comes down, gets rid of a creature, so it's kind of a removal spell, and it makes us the Monarch, so as long as our opponent can't get in damage on us with a creature, combat damage, we get to draw an extra card every turn. We have our own personal Howling Mine, and then Enlistment Officer is the Goblin Ringleader of the Soldier tribe. There was actually a whole cycle of these. The Ringleader is the most well-known, but comes into play, look at the top 4 cards of your library, you get to grab all the soldiers, which is pretty sweet in a deck that's just overloaded with creatures and all of them soldiers, usually getting like 2 cards off of this, which is pretty reasonable when all the soldiers are very powerful. And then we kind of transform into a sort of a prisony, slow the opponent down type of plan. So we have Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, taxes spells. Storm is a big deck right now with Miracles being gone. It's been putting up a lot of results on Magic Online. Thalia is a great main deckable answer to that. Also just taxing Brainstorms, Force of Wills, all that stuff is nice. Thalia Heretic Cathar slows the opponent down by making their lands and creatures, which could be blocking your soldiers, come into play tap. So a nice benefit there. And remember, you can't have one of each on the battlefield. You can't have 2 Thalia Guardian of Thrabens or 2 Thalia Heretic Cathars, but you can have double Thalias if you have one of each. So the rest of the main deck is built around kind of locking the opponent out of the game. We got 0 1-drops in our deck, so Chalice of the Void hopefully comes down on turn 1 with some of our fast mana and just locks 1 mana plays out of the game. We don't have 1-drop, so it doesn't hurt us. Our opponent can't Brainstorm, our opponent can't Swords to Plowshares, our opponent can't Storm off because that's where a lot of the rituals are. So it's super powerful against some decks. Can lock decks like Delver almost completely out of the game if we play this on turn 1. And then Suppression Field field takes advantage of the fact that we don't have any fetch lands, and while this can tax planeswalker activations and stuff like that, the main purpose here is something else we can potentially play on turn 1, and it just makes it so our opponent can't turn 1, play a fetch, crack a fetch. They gotta get up 2 mana, and this can sometimes just hard lock people out of the game. If you're playing a deck that has a ton of fetch lands, Suppression Field is one of the last cards you want to see across the table. In the mana base, we have Chromox, not technically a land, but one of our ways to accelerate into that Chalice of the Void, into that Suppression Field on turn 1. So we can exile a random white card, play a land, play Chromox. Ancient Tomb lets us cast a Chalice of the Void on 1 on our first turn, all by itself. We got to take a bit of damage, but that's fine. Cavern, make sure our opponent can't counter our soldiers, and then some planes. As far as the sideboard, we get a bunch of different options. This is kind of removal-ish type stuff. Tormod's Crypt to remove the graveyard, Ratchet Bomb to blow up a bunch of tokens if our opponent's Lingering Souls or has a bunch of Goblin tokens from an Empty the Warrens. We can get rid of them so they can't block our soldiers. Oblivion Ring, kind of a catch-all. Palace Jailer gets rid of a creature. We already talked about it. Gives us the Monarch card advantage. Then we have the weird lock pieces. Juntu Stakes makes it so small creatures don't untap. Crackdown makes it so big non-white creatures don't untap. So we kind of have everything covered. Unless your creature has exactly 2 power, between these 2 cards, we're going to make it so they don't untap. Sanctum Prelate is kind of additional Chalice of the Void, except it has the upside that we can cast it and name 4, for example, to counter Supreme Verdict. And then we have an Armageddon and a Johnny Steadfast. Armageddon's great if you can just flood the board, blow up all the lands. And then a Johnny Steadfast, just a little something for more controlling matchups when the game might go long. And that is Legacy Soldiers. And that's been our Wildcard Wednesday instant deck tech for this week. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.